The confabulated reality, narcissistic contagion, and symbolic collapse. Confabulation, as described by Sam Vaknin, is not merely the narcissist's way of coping with fragmented memory. It is the psychic glue that binds a disintegrating internal world. Within MPIT, this phenomenon becomes more than just a defensive process. It is a symbol of the narcissist's existential terror and a contagion that infects the survivor through mirrored psychic inversion. Sam Vaknin distinguishes confabulation from gaslighting with precise clarity. The narcissist does not lie with intent, unlike the psychopath, who knowingly alters reality for strategic gain. Narcissus has no stable reality to return to. He is already gone, psychologically disassociated, affectively amputated, unable to discern internal fantasy from external truth. His narrative is not falsehood, it is the only script he has. It is his truth, his identity. In MPIT terms, this is where the death drive enters. Inverse mirrored reflexive apathy, IMRA. The collapse mechanism is initiated when the narcissist's internal script overtakes the shared space of the relationship. Partner begins to feel the distortions long before they can name them. Affective rupture occurs first, a sense that the emotional feedback loop has been severed or rerouted. You speak, but your words enter an echo chamber. You emote, but it returns no empathy. This is the threshold of contagion. The survivor begins to question themselves, not because of direct lies, but because of the recursive confabulated world that the narcissist projects. The narcissist is not gaslighting, he is broadcasting a corrupted self generated reality and insisting that you join him inside it. He confabulates event B to bridge the dissociative gap between A and C and demands that you affirm the integrity of this invented link. If you do not, he is injured. If you persist, he is mortified. But if you agree, even momentarily, your symbolic center begins to fracture. This is narcissistic contagion. You start to second guess what you saw, felt, or even experienced, not because you are weak, but because the symbolic atmosphere has changed. Words no longer carry shared meaning. You are interacting with internal objects now, representations, not people, and somewhere inside you feel it. You're being pulled into the internal theatre of another person's pathology. MPIT posits that the victim does not simply suffer abuse, they undergo a symbolic inversion. The narcissist's internal fragmentation, the collapse of narrative coherence, of object constancy, of maternal stability, is transmitted through the affective field and mirrored within the partner. What was once dialogue becomes monologue. What was once shared fantasy becomes a prison of one. The narcissist confabulations become your reality, if only for survival. You learn to nod, you learn to mirror, you cohabit the lie. But the cost is immense. The survivor loses access to internal authorship, their symbolic center. Once able to say this is real, becomes entangled with the narcissist's internal split. What they experience is not merely confusion, it is contamination. The narcissist's inability to separate themselves from object, fantasy from truth, is now mirrored within the victim as a disassociative fog. This is the core of M. Pitt's insight. The narcissist does not just injure, he infects. His symbolic world consumes yours. And he does this not with malice, but necessity. Confabulation is a survival strategy for the narcissist, but for the partner, it is a death knell, a slow erosion of self knowledge, perception, memory, and trust. Over time, the partner's reality testing collapses. They begin to replay scenes in their head, unsure of what was real. They write apology messages for things they didn't do. They become caretakers of the narcissist's internal script. And when discard arrives, as it always does, they are left not just with grief, but with symbolic ruin. Who am I? What was true? Did any of it happen? These are not philosophical questions. These are the echoes of a self once mirrored into oblivion. Narcissistic contagion through confabulation is not a shared delusion. It is a symbolic infection, and only through rupture, affective, cognitive, and relational, can the survivor begin to recover authorship. In M Pit, the rupture point, the silent snap inside the survivor, is the beginning of healing, but it begins in horror, in the scream of one's own memory refusing to comply, in the death of coherence, and in the whispered realization it was never real, but I lived inside it. This is the confabulated reality, and this is its cost. Peace out.